The point of a women's circle is just to create a kind of safe, sacred space for authentic connection. And that is authentic connection to each other, to our innermost selves, and also on the more woo level to the cycles that we are all influenced by, the cycles of our bodies, the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the earth, and all of these things that we experience, whether we are consciously aware of that or not. And as a practice, it's thousands of years old. It used to be very much part of society that women would gather. You may have heard of things like the red tent, where women thousands of years ago would get together at the time that they were bleeding to be in circle together. And it's gone underground a bit for the last few hundred years while we've been under patriarchal majority rule, but it's really gaining a resurgence at the moment, which is, and there's circles popping up all over the place, which is really lovely to see. And they are usually hosted at times related to the moon, so the new moon and the full moon. Not always necessarily, but quite often women's circles do tend to center around moon type events. And that is because the cycle that the moon goes through every month is pretty much a mirror reflection of the cycle that we go through internally in our own bodies every month while we're in our menstrual years in any case. So we're at the new moon this evening, which is the very start of the lunar cycle. And it's a kind of low, inward, yin being type of an energy, quite akin to when we're in the winter season. And that can encourage in us this kind of inward, reflective type energy, which is the same thing that we experience when we are bleeding. We have lower energy. We're usually called inwards, wanting to withdraw, be on our own. Modern life doesn't often allow us to do that. But if you tap into how you're feeling around your menstrual cycle, you may notice that is typically what you're called to do at the time that you're bleeding. As I said, new moon, it's the very start of the cycle. And we then go for 2 weeks, the moon's kind of light and energy builds as it waxes on the way up to the full moon. So we shift from this kind of low inward being state into a more yang, outward doing energetic state as our energy builds up to the full moon, which is the culmination of the highest energy point of the cycle. And that's very much akin to what happens in our bodies when we're around ovulation time. You might notice that you feel naturally more energized when you're ovulating, naturally more magnetic and extroverted. And that's the same mirror energy that's happening with the full moon. And then from the full moon for roughly 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks for it to wane back down to the new moon. The light gradually dims down, the energy gradually dims down, and we shift from that kind of yang towards a more yin being, inward energy. And it's not a coincidence that these two cycles, our menstrual cycle and the moon cycle, are pretty much a mirror image of each other. And this is why women's circles are quite often connected with the moon, because it's actually very different for men. Hormonally, men have a cycle that is very much the same. Every 24 hours, they have the same energy, day in, day out, thereabouts. For women, we are energetically, emotionally, physically completely different from the first half of our menstrual cycle to the second half of our menstrual cycle. And that kind of template is what we can tap into by working with the moon. I'm just going to say this here because sometimes people do freak out at this point. If your own menstrual cycle is not perfectly lined up with the moon, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It doesn't need to be. I'm just talking about the pattern and the template that happens here. And it's a magical, special thing to tap into in a more sustainable way for us to live our lives if we can manage to spend less time in the outward doing energy, which is what we all do most of the time. So at the new moon, we are being called inwards. It's a time to rest, to reflect, reset, really recharge our energy, basically, so that we're ready to spring into life again once things shift into the waxing phase. And it's the same again when we're bleeding. If we allow ourselves to rest during that time, you will find then you have so much more energy, physical energy, to spring forward once you're kind of out of that menstrual phase, which, I've been tracking my cycle for a couple of years now, and I've been amazed at how true that actually is. So yes, new moon, rest, reflect, reset. It's all these lovely relax, all these R words. And it's a perfect time for us to be able to turn inwards and become conscious about where are we at in our life, how are we feeling about things, and what intentions do we want to set for the upcoming cycle. Because if nothing else, working with the moon or your menstrual cycle or both is really a great kind of internal compass, and also like a cosmic timer, they call it, because you have these inbuilt check-in points every 2 weeks. So if you can allow yourself to stop and slow down just once every 2 weeks, you will be amazed at how much more in tune and aligned your life will begin to feel, because you're just taking the time to check in with yourself and what's important to you, and is what's in your life a reflection of what is most important to you, basically, or have you gone off track or got distracted with busy work and demands of everyday life. So the format for this evening, again, I just like to set the container because I know a few of you haven't been before. We will do a little ritual with our candle just to connect everybody, ground everybody into the space. And then we're going to do a couple of guided visualizations with some journaling and some breath work. And then there'll be time for sharing. And so what I would say about the sharing is that I know that it can be super intimidating in a space like this. And some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight might feel quite vulnerable. But just remember that the whole point of coming to an event like this, even if you're not into any of the astro or the moon or the woo or any of that stuff that I just talked about, really the reason that women are called more and more to join these types of circles is because we want that deep, truthful, authentic connection. We want to be able to empathetically witness each other. And whatever you share in this space, it's never just for you. It will always invoke something for somebody else. And it might be something that really makes them feel really seen and makes them feel less alone. So you will usually find, if you can get past the initial resistance to share, that it will feel so comforting to you to be able to just be held in a safe space like this with other women.